Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. We have a special ceremony before we start our meeting today. Mr. James Bach, our new elected supervisor, will be sworn in by the Honorable Denise M. Stuck-Lewis, District Judge. So if Her Honor would mind coming up, Mr. Bach.
I've been told my family is permitted to come up. I don't know how many or how many.
Bring the whole gang.
Bring them all.
If you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James Bach,
I, James Bach,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of supervisor
and that I will discharge the duties of supervisor
in Millcreek Township, Erie County,
in Millcreek Township, Erie County,
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations, Supervisor Bach.
Thank you.
And folks, we will have a light reception for Jim after the meeting today. Though I understand that the kids might have to get to school, you're welcome to dig in beforehand if you guys would like to grab a cookie for the road. The time is now 9:30. I will call the January 2nd, 2018 reorganization meeting for the Millcreek Township Board of Supervisors to order. First order of business, the election of a temporary chairman.
I will move to elect the election of temporary chairman John Grow.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Grow?
Aye.
Mr. Bach?
Aye.
And I vote yes.
Okay.
Mr. Grow?
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. Please join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I will call for nominations of the chairman for this year. Do I hear any nominations?
If you don't mind.
I would like to nominate John Morgan for chairman.
Okay, and I will second that. Mr. Bach, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Morgan, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Chairmanship is yours now.
Thank you, Mr. Grow. Next item on the agenda, I'll call for nominations for an election of vice chairman.
I would nominate John Grow for vice chairman.
I'll second. Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of township secretary. And I would move that the board appoint Cheryl Williams as secretary for 2018.
I will second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Also, I'd like to note this will be a promotion for Ms. Williams. I would move that Cheryl receive a 2% increase to her 2018 wages.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Call for nomination, or call for appointment of township treasurer.
I nominate Mark Shahesky as our township treasurer.
I second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. I'll call for appointment of township engineer.
I'll nominate Richard Morris as our township engineer.
I will second that nomination.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. The next call for appointment of the township solicitor.
I'll nominate the law firm of McDonald, Illig, Jones, and Britton, LLP, with Mark Shaw as the principal contact for the township.
I will second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is the appointment of a municipal administrator for public works and services.
I move that John H. Grow be appointed as well to the employee position of municipal administrator.
And I will second that motion. Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, the municipal administrator for township operations, which have oversight of the Department of Administration and Department of Planning and Development.
I'll move that John Morgan be appointed as well as to the employee position of a municipal administrator over township operations with oversight of Department Administration, Planning and Development, and the board's liaison to the Planning Commission, Zoning Hearing Board, and the chairman of the Safety Committee.
I second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is the appointment of municipal administrator with oversight over the of public safety, which would be oversight of the Millcreek Police Department and Department of Emergency Management and Code Enforcement, and the board's liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission and Millcreek Neighborhood Watch.
I'll nominate James S. Bach as the municipal administrator of public safety with oversight over the police department and the Department of Emergency Management and Code Enforcement, and also as board liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Neighborhood Watch.
I'll second. Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is the appointment of the delegate and alternate delegate to the 2018 PSATS State Conference.
I'll nominate James Bach as our primary delegate to the 2018 PSATS Conference.
And I'll second. Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. I will further move to nominate John Grow as our alternate to the 2018 PSATS Conference.
I will second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is the appointment of our member of the Cato Executive Committee for 2018.
I'll nominate James Bach as our member designee to the Cato Executive Committee for this year, 2018.
And I will second. Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is the appointment of representative and alternate representatives to the Erie Area Council of Governments for 2018.
I move that John Grow, in his capacity as municipal administrator, and Gary Snyder and Sean Kern, in their capacities as Public Works Director and Streets Bureau Chief, be appointed respectively, the township's representative and alternative representatives to the Erie Area Council of Governments for 2018.
And I will second. Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is the appointment of representative and alternate representative to the Lake Erie Coastal Zone Advisory Committee for 2018.
Yes, I'll move that Matthew Waldinger be our primary representative, and Ann Sokol will be our alternate representative to the Lake Erie Coastal Zone Advisory Committee for this year.
I second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of our voting representative and alternate to the Erie Metropolitan Planning Organization Coordinating Committee for 2018. We do have two voting representatives and two alternates, so this will be for the first seat.
Okay. I will move for the first representative and then the alternate for that seat. Primary member will be John Morgan, and then Ann Sokol will be the alternate for you.
I'll second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item will be for our second seat on the Erie Metropolitan Planning Organization Coordinating Committee for 2018.
Okay. For the voting representative and then the alternate, the primary member will be Richard Morris, the township engineer, and the alternate for him will be Matthew Waldinger. Put that in the form of a motion. That will be for this year.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Grow?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next item is for the voting representative and alternate to the Erie Metropolitan Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee for 2018.
I'll move to appoint Richard Morris as our primary and then John Morgan as our alternate for the Erie Metropolitan Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee, and that is for this year.
I will second that.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is for the boards, a nomination for the Cato representative for the Erie County Planning Commission. Just to clarify, we do not appoint directly to the Planning Commission, but we are nominating, this will be for us to nominate a representative for Millcreek to be considered by the Cato Board for appointment to the Planning Commission.
I move that John Grow, in his capacity as municipal administrator, be nominated for a Cato representative to the Erie County Planning Commission.
And I will second. Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2018 R1, definition of municipal administrator and liaison duties. Resolution 2018 R1 is as follows. Be it resolved that we, the supervisors of Millcreek Township, Erie County, Pennsylvania, hereby provide that the municipal administrators who oversee the areas of public works and services, township operations, and public safety are appointed as the boards of liaisons to the respective departments and agencies. These responsibilities include day-to-day communications with department heads and the public. Also, the administrators shall report to the Board of Supervisors, which retain full authority for decisions, and that appointment of administrators does not modify responsibilities previously assigned to department heads. This will also establish the job description, reestablish job description for municipal administrators, which is the employed positions that the board supervisor holds. Do I hear a motion to approve Resolution 2018 R1?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2018 R1.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. The next few items on our agenda are related to financial matters for the township. Item 22, establish a bond for treasurer for 2018 at $1 million. And Mark, is there any other detail for this that we need to discuss?
I don't think so. It was increased a couple years ago from $500,000 to $1 million.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to establish a bond for the treasurer for the year 2018 in the amount of $1 million.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I'll vote yes. Next on the agenda is the nomination of fund depositories for 2018. The township works with several banks in the area. That list includes PNC Bank, First National Bank of PA, Citizens Bank, Northwest Savings Bank, Newburgh Berman Private Equity Fund, Vanguard International Growth Fund, DFA International Core Fund, Multi-Employer Property Trust, and Erie Bank for our various bank accounts and investment accounts here at the township. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2018 fund depositories?
I'll move to approve those financial institutions and insurance companies, or not insurance companies, but pension firms for this year, 2018.
I second.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes, and a full list of those accounts and those agencies will be available in the township offices. Next item is nomination of insurance carriers for 2018. Again, these are for the 2018 insurance carriers. For workers' compensation, we Brick Street Insurance. For property, we McGowan Governmental Underwriters. For general liabilities, McGowan Governmental Underwriters. And for automobile insurance, be McGowan Governmental Underwriters. Do I hear a motion to approve the insurance carriers?
Yes, I will move to approve the insurance carriers for this year.
I second that.
Mr. Grove?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have several administrative matters. The first is the communication of appointments and treasurer's bonds to the Board of Auditors. We do have a letter for us. Do I hear a motion to communicate these appointments and the bond notification to the Board of Auditors?
Yes, I will move to approve that communication to the Board of Auditors.
I second.
Mr. Grow?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have several committee, authority, and commission appointments for the year. First is our Planning Commission. I would move that we reappoint Mr. Peter Cabella to the Planning Commission for a term to begin January 15th, of 2018 to expire January 15th of 2022.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have appointment for the Recycling Education Advisory Committee, which is a one-year term that will expire on January 15th, 2019. Do I hear a motion to appoint Stephen Cornelius to be reappointed to the board?
Yeah, I'll move to reappoint Steve Cornelius for a one-year term.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Oh,
Mr. Morgan, that entire list should be reappointed for 1 year.
Oh,
Oh, I apologize. That would be Stephen G. Cornelius, Carl Cronmiller, Kenneth C. Fromnick, Charles Skip Glover, Grace A. Horton, Roy
welcome.
Walkema, and a new appointment, Janine Fennell. Do I hear a motion to reappoint the Recycling Education Advisory Committee?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. We also have a reappointment to the Zoning Hearing Board for a 3-year term to expire January 15th of 2021. That would be, I would nominate Regina Smith to be reappointed to that board.
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. We also have a new appointment to fill the alternate position on the Zoning Hearing Board, which is a 1-year term. And I would move that we appoint Bob Tanner as the alternate to the Zoning Hearing Board.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, we have the vacancy board too, John.
We also need to appoint for the Vacancy Board to a 1-year term to expire January 15th, 2019. Do I hear a nomination for, to reappoint Reverend John Dedish?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
Vote yes.
And I vote yes.
And we also have that as our appeals board.
All right. We also have a UCC Appeals Board to appoint. I would move that the board authorize the ECADO UCC Appeals Board to serve as the appeals board for the Millcreek Township.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next on the agenda is the designation of regular meetings of the Board of Supervisors. Cheryl, would you like me to read these out, or just list it to be?
They will be advertised in the newspaper as well. The first paragraph is all the board meetings, the rest of the paragraph is, the second paragraph is all the other township commission meetings.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors meeting schedule for 2018 and the Zoning Hearing Board and various commission meeting schedules for 2018?
I so move.
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. Next is Resolution 2018 R2. Be it resolved that we, the supervisors of Millcreek Township in Erie County, Pennsylvania, hereby authorize the municipal administrators in their employed capacities, Millcreek Township volunteer firefighters, and employees as authorized by the township supervisors of the Township of Millcreek to attend such meetings and events during 2018 that pertain to the fulfillment of their duties as township officials and employees.
I'll second.
Do I hear a motion?
Oh, I'll move to approve. I'm sorry.
A second?
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
I vote yes.
Mr. Bach?
I vote yes.
And I vote yes. And that concludes the official business of the reorganization meeting. We will entertain a hearing of the public, though. Any comments from the audience? For the good of the order, anyone?
Just want to welcome Jim to our board, and I see your family. I think your kids had to go to school today, is that right? Yeah, they had to go to school.
Yes, there was a 2-hour delay,
Right,
but
yeah.
I see Ethan's still here. Maybe he doesn't want to go.
Okay, he can hang around with us
He can hang
for the rest
around.
of the day. So.
That's okay.
But anyway, I want to
He has
welcome
our
you.
permission.
I want to welcome you on board there, Jim, and look forward to working with you. Cheryl, I want to congratulate you on your promotion, elevation to Township Secretary. And for people that did not know this, the Township Secretary, the person who's always been the assistant, has actually been the one that does the work. Myself had that position here, and I didn't really do a darn thing other than sign things. You know, the actual work was done by Cheryl, so I think we made the right move by making her the Township Secretary, so congratulations on that there.
Thank you, Cheryl. And again, Mr. Bach, congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, John.
And just so I'm clear, before we close the meeting, Cheryl, Mark, or Mark, did we miss anything?
I think so.
All right. I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn at 9:49 a.m.
I will second that.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And remember, there's some refreshments outside for Mr. Bach.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.